cooking for ourselves. We do okay when we're at home, I agreed. We had bought a few cookbooks at second-hand bookstores. We picked very simple recipes. Our apartment in St. Louis was hanging in the balance right now. We spent so much time on the road that it was very nearly a waste of money, but we needed a home base, somewhere to collect our mail, a place to call home when we weren't driving around the United States. We'd been saving up to buy a house, probably somewhere in the Dallas area, so we'd be close to our aunt and her husband. They had custody of our 2 little sisters. We spotted the restaurant sign we'd been looking for after about 20 miles, and I pulled off the interstate. Though it was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the parking lot was crowded. I tried not to grimace. Tolliver just loved Cracker Barrel. He didn't mind wading through all the kitsch in the store part of the building. So after we parked, about a half-mile away, we slogged through the slush, past the rocking chairs on the porch, stamping our feet on the mat so we wouldn't track the icy mess inside. The restrooms were clean, and the place was warm. We were seated almost immediately, and the waitress, a very young woman with hair as straight as a horse's tail, was delighted to serve us. Well, Tolliver. Waitresses, barmaids, maids in hotels, serving women love Tolliver. We ordered, and while I was simply enjoying not being in a moving vehicle, Tolliver was thinking about the next job. "It's a law enforcement invitation," he warned me. That meant less money, but good buzz. We always wanted law enforcement professionals to give us a good recommendation. About half the referrals we got came from detectives, sheriffs, deputies, and so on. Though they might not believe in me, there'd be pressure on them from somewhere about a particular investigation, and they'd call me in, having heard about me through the law enforcement grapevine. Maybe there was someone influential they wanted to get off their back. Maybe they were stumped about finding someone, or they'd exhausted just about every venue in their search for a missing person. The law didn't pay well, but it paid off. "What do they want me to do? Cemetery or the search?" "Search." That meant I'd have to go looking for the body. The jobs I got were about 50-50. Since the lightning had snaked through the window of our trailer in Texarkana when I was 15, I'd been able to locate corpses. If the body was in its proper grave in the cemetery, the people who hired me wanted to know the cause of death. If the body was in an unknown location, I could track it, if the search was limited in scope. Luckily, the buzz given off by a corpse was less intense as the corpse aged, or I'd have been batshit crazy by now. Think about it. Caveman corpses, Native American corpses, the early settlers, the more recently deceased. That's a lot of dead people, and they all let me know where their earthly remains were interred. I wondered if it would be worthwhile sending my little brochure to archaeological digs, and how Tolliver would go about collecting the address information for such a mailing. Tolliver was much better with our laptop than I was, simply because he was more interested. It wasn't like he was my servant or anything. He was the first person I'd told about my strange ability, after I'd recovered from the physical effects of the lightning strike. Though at first he hadn't believed me, he'd been willing to humor me by testing what I could and couldn't do. And as we'd worked out the limits of my odd new power, he'd become a believer. By the time I'd graduated from high school, we had our plan all worked out, and we hit the road. At first, we'd just traveled on weekends. Tolliver had had to work a regular job, too, and I'd picked up money by working in fast food places. But after 2 years, he'd been able to quit the day job. We'd been on the road together ever since. At the moment, Tolliver was playing the peg game that's always on the table at Cracker Barrel. His face looked serious and calm. He didn't look like he was suffering.